Let us talk about tea. If you've been keen on the social media spaces, you have seen that most farmers right now are cutting down the clumps of tea in their farms and are leaving the soil for now other better uses. This conversation is coming shortly after tea is one of the major exports that we export as a country. So I want to put two things into sequence before we get into the main conversation. We are different countries competing differently in the global stage when it comes to trade. So there are countries that produce oil like Nigeria. There are countries that are known for manufacturing because they have oil like Saudi Arabia. Then there are countries like us, an African country whose only produce and competition in the global space is something like tea and coffee. What do I mean? Let me break this down simpler. If we are trading with a dollar, and we are looking at the value of what you have against the dollar, a person with oil will sell a very small portion to meet that requirement of the value against a dollar, compared to the amount of portion that a person with tea will sell to meet that requirement. So if we need just one pinch of oil, for example, to sell at 129 Kenyan shillings, we might need almost a kg of tea to sell at that price. So in the global stage as an African country, we have to produce a lot to just meet the basic competition level requirement against people who produce other things than tea. Now that's the first thing I want to put in sequence. The second thing I want to put in sequence is live. If you take this sachet of tea and put it in a cup, you will have used just about 1.5 to 3 grams of tea. So if you're to buy these sachets for an household, the biggest box has 100 packs of this. You will have bought 300 grams of tea. The price you will pay is around 1,249 if you're buying Ketepa, which is among the high value sachets right now of tea. So if we were to talk about the value of a kg of tea, then you will have to buy 3 boxes and almost half of Ketepa or Kericho Gold to reach a kg worth of tea in these sachets. The amount you will have paid to have this kg worth of tea, if you are to buy 3 boxes and a half, will be around 4,000 Kenyan shillings. Because for 3 boxes of this, you will pay 3,747. Now you can calculate what you'll pay for half of this, which makes the value to around 4,000 Kenyan shillings for you to have a kg worth of tea for family right now. Now you will have paid 4,000 Kenyan shillings to buy that tea, while the farmer that grew that tea somewhere in Liten or somewhere in Nyamache in Kisii County will be being paid 10 shillings per the very kg that you have bought for 4,000 Kenyan shillings from the supermarket. If the farmer comes from Liten, they will be paid 17 shillings per the very kg that you have paid 4,000 Kenyan shillings for from the supermarket. And if the farmer is coming from Embu or Rukuriri or Imenti, then they will be paid 56 or 57 Kenyan shillings per the very kg that you have paid 4,000 for in the supermarkets. This is our main conversation today here at the Civic Lens. We'll be taking a look at why has tea degraded, why are farmers crying and cutting down these tree logs of tea, but most importantly, where is the blame? So let's start. Kenya has around 600,000 to 650,000 tea growers or certified farmers of tea. Now, because most of these tea growers cannot directly meet their clients or cannot directly channel their production of tea to the market, they have come together, the 600,000 to 650,000 of them, and have joined hands to form something called the Kenya Tea Development Agency, KTDA. Now, KTDA, that is formed as a result of 54 affiliate companies and that has 9 other subsidiary companies for value-adding chain in tea, produces or controls a production of 60% of tea production in Kenya. That's locally. We're not aware of how much tea they export or how much tea other agencies that are affiliated to KTDA exports. But for these farmers that have come together to sell their tea through the agency, they control 60% of the tea market locally. 60% of the 4,000 worth of 1 kilogram that you buy of tea from the supermarkets, yet they are paid between 10 shillings to 57 shillings. So before we go deep, let me explain this. The conversation we are having is not on the monthly rating that is given to tea. This is what I mean by monthly rating. If you're growing tea right now, there is an amount of money that is given to you monthly based on the kilograms that you have produced and you have taken to your factory that is affiliated to these agencies. Okay, but beyond that, once all this accumulation has been done for a period of June to June, because just like the financial year, the tea calculation period of finance is also that period of June to June. Their year begins in 1st June and ends in the 30th or 31st of June the following year. So the period of June to June accumulates a particular amount of bonus that you're supposed to be awarded, and this bonus is the subject of our conversation. So our conversation is not based on the monthly rating that you will be given, and I'll explain why. The reason why our conversation, for now, let's put a pause in our conversation, and the reason why our conversation will not be based on this rating is because this rating is based on the grade of tea that you take to your factory, and also largely on the arrangement that the farmer has with the factory. So the grade of tea may vary because of the soil where it's grown, the temperature and climate of the area, sometimes even the harvesting method. A person that harvests manually has a higher grade of tea compared to a person that harvests through electricity. And so these other things determine the amount that you'll be paid per kg monthly. That varies. But the amount that you're supposed to be paid for bonus annually, this is a subject of our conversation because it's a national issue. So what goes into tea growing? Let's start from the beginning. You prepare your ground, you plant this tree of tea that takes a period of approximately 3 years to mature confidently, and you will harvest from it for time immemorial. Once you harvest your tea, you have to prepare your tea so that it's not the raw tea leaves you have harvested, it is the packable tea that can be put in kgs before you sell to a factory. This packaging process sometimes takes electricity, which is another cost, or sometimes it takes the manual way of firewood, which is also another cost. So there is a cost of labor, there's a cost of electricity, there's a cost of firewood if you're not using electricity, then there's the cost of time and growing tea, which are all factors that needs to be considered when you are selling your tea. But the person that will buy your tea will only base it on one factor, the factor of quality. So farmers are crying, and there are pictures that are on social media showing farmers actually cutting down their tea and saying that they will use now this soil for better things. For that reason, it has prompted us here at the Civic Lens to take a look at why really are farmers cutting down their tree, and why is this pay this way. So you see, the value adding chain of tea for making it packable is still the cost of the farmer. But now if you're in Nyamachi, you will be paid 10 shillings for the same 4,000, as I say, that someone buys your tea in the supermarket, the same value of a kg. If you're in Liten, you'll be paid 17 Kenyan shillings. If you are in Imenti, you'll be paid 56 Kenyan shillings. If you're in Rukuriri, you will be paid a total of 57 Kenyan shillings. If you're in Weru, you'll be paid 42 Kenyan shillings. These payments vary. Now, these payments varying is really not an issue per se, because it's an issue that we'll take a look in deeply later. We want to understand what happens to the farmer if these values remain this way. You see, a farmer growing tea most likely is not the person that takes care of this tea in the farm. They have larger plantations, so a farmer will seek the assistance of an employee to take care of the land, grow the tea, harvest the tea, prepare the tea for packaging. Then the farmer will take the tea to the factory. Before the payment of the farmer comes, the farmer has to take care of these employees. So the farmer has to ensure that the employee is paid, and there is a standard payment for all the employees across board that do this work for tea. The standard payment might range with some shillings on top, but most times it's 15 shillings per kilogram that each employee makes as a result of the growing, harvesting, preparing for packaging. So per each kg that the farmer's employee packages, the farmer parts with 15 Kenyan shillings. You're just imagining a farmer in Kisii, Nyamache, or a farmer in Litein who has consistently paid the employee the 15 Kenyan shillings. And then at the end of the year, the return that the farmer receives for the very kilo that he has paid 15 shillings is 10 shillings, or on the high, 17 shillings. It clearly shows that tea production and tea value has gone down so much that the person that benefits from it at the bottom is not even the farmer, but the farmer's employee. Tea has lost its value that the person that owns the farm, the person on whose farm the tea is growing consistently, and the person who has hope with the tea does not even benefit from the tea, because the least that they get still goes to the person that takes care of the tea and not themselves. And on the high rank, locally, where we say KTDA controls 60% of the production, you find that on the high end, the people benefiting from the tea are intermediaries and other people that are not actual farmers, to the 100 or thousands of percents on top of what the farmer is getting. So this farmer in Litein, whose tea is being sold for 4,000 somewhere in a supermarket in Nairobi, will have paid the employee, will have taken care of anything from their own pockets, and when the returns come, he will be negative 5 shillings for each kg that he grew for a period of 3 years. Now, farmers have said enough is enough, and most of them are cutting down these tree clumps and are saying it's better to have the soil to grow other things than to have headache over tea productions that you keep taking care of, you keep harvesting and putting time in, and the returns never comes. In the global scale or in the national scale, this really has a huge effect on us as a country. As I said from the very beginning, if tea is the major thing that we are producing externally as a country, then it is very, very important that we take care of it here locally. You remember, these conversations are coming shortly after coffee also suffered the same fate. Most farmers in a period of 5 or 4 years ago were seen cutting down their coffee plantations because the returns of coffee were actually going down. It's a worry that now if coffee is not being produced in mass production like it was anymore, and if tea is now being cut off from farms, then what is going to be Kenya's major export? What are we going to be competing against the global stage with? Because we're not a country that produces, we do not have resources, and our whole reliance has been on tea and coffee. Let's take a look at what the blame, where the blame is being apportioned. You see, when things like this are happening, we cannot actually really go directly and blame an agency that is created by the people to be a vehicle for them into the markets. As much as we are saying that the value transits from the 10 shillings or the 57 shillings on the high end that farmers receive to the 4,000 that is being sold in the supermarkets, we cannot entirely just blame intermediaries. Because even the very first beginning, the creation of these particular intermediaries as a result of the farmers' initiative is because the government has not created enough structures for them to actually sell. Now, the government is blaming the board, saying that the policies of the board is why the farmers are not getting enough share of what they labor so hard to produce. But Kenyans are wondering that had the production been marvelous than this, would the government really blame the board, or would they take all the credit? We are in a system where credit is given to the bigger person and blame is given to the younger person in hierarchy of government operation, but it is very, very clear that there is a problem both with the government and the policies of the government and the implementation at the board stage, that both require reconsideration right now, that farmers are actively cutting down tea. This might seem like a small thing in the light of it right now, but in 5 or 10 years, when now our production has gone so low and our competition in the global stage has gone so low, we will feel the pinch of what farmers are doing right now. And arguably, Kenyan tea is one of the best tea globally. So even in the global stage, we are going to affect lovers of tea if our production goes down, just because our government cannot put in enough policies to take care of these farmers. These farmers are crying, and they are really suffering from investing for something that brings product for the country, but cannot even educate their children or put food on their own table. The problem that farmers are saying is that the whole chain, or rather the solution that the government can give to the farmers right now, is to extract the cost that comes from the value added value-added chain, because then the farmers have to add the value to their tea before they sell it, and yet they still sell it at an underprice. So it's a call for both the government and the agencies and the board that take care, the Kenya Tea Board, that takes care of the interest of the farmers, to look at this thing before it becomes a national crisis, where we do not have a national export just because the government did not listen to the farmers. But we also have to take a look at deliberate steps that have been taken in other sectors for farmers that shows that actually if those steps were actually taken for tea, we could see results. We've seen farmers of sugarcane right now having the price on their tons increased and their payment even faster in 2 weeks compared to periods where they would have waited for 3 months and so for payment to be made. So these fast tracking processes that have occurred in other sectors within the agriculture department like sugarcane needs also to come to the attention of the CS so that he fixes his gaze on the main export being tea. If government can now focus its attention on tea and reclaim this before all the farmers cut it down, then just like pyrethrum that escaped our production and cotton that since we have stopped to produce, we might save tea from that extinction. But if the government and the board do not do anything in time, then just the way we say we once used to produce pyrethrum and we once used to produce cotton, we might go to a country that says that our major export was once tea. This is the Civic Lens.